Are you struggling for consistency in your sim racing? Does your iRating look like a roller coaster? If so, we have good news for you. The way to get more consistent is to first understand what you're doing differently than the professionals. And VRS is the answer. With our competitive subscription, you will have the telemetry, setups, tutorials, and everything else you need to fully analyze your driving. Our data packs and the ability to compare your driving with the best in the world will show you exactly where to adjust your inputs, change your driving line, and shave seconds off of your lap times. And our powerful and precise Direct Force Pro wheelbase and precision pedals are being used by some of the world's best drivers. All these champions agree that VRS hardware is not just the best on the market, it's also priced well below the competition. So if you're looking to upgrade to direct drive and the best pedals in sim racing, VRS is your answer. If you want to get better, get faster, and make it happen sooner rather than later, you owe it to yourself to find out why so many people are switching to VRS. You'll be so glad that you did. Visit www.virtualracingschool.com and learn why the best use VRS.
And good afternoon, good evening, and good night from wherever you are watching here on Apex Racing TV. I'm Adam, along with Ron here tonight. We are here again with the ARA Super Formula Lights week number 2 at Fuji Speedway. A beautiful afternoon. We have 25 degrees Celsius, 74% humidity, cloudy with a slight wind out on Fuji, which should make it very, very exciting here today. Make sure you hit that subscribe button and the notification bell to stay up to date with everything happening on Apex Racing TV. Again, my name is Adam. Along with me is Ron. And Ron, we have a beautiful day of racing ahead of us.
Oh, absolutely. This season, despite it being only one race old, has impressed already. 1 week ago, Misano was an incredibly exciting race, and I feel like here today at Fuji is going to be no different. This circuit is somewhat similar to Misano last time out. You have a very long flat-out blast and a whole lot of challenging corners thrown in as well. And I think we'll take a look at this track map, and you can see this massive and very historic track. 16 corners in all, a whole lot of history thrown in as well. This track was originally meant to be an oval track designed all the way back in the 60s, but even to this day, Fuji and speed go together like peanut butter and chocolate. So even today, Fuji is a temple of speed at a circuit in Japan. And it all starts at that long run up to turn number 1. Fuji has one of the longest straightaways from this season's schedule, and from the grid boxes, it's still going to be a long run. Drivers are going to be 158 miles an hour heading into that hairpin, which will be a great overtaking opportunity. Then once you get out there, you are thrown into a hornet's nest. Turn 3, 4, and 5 fast corners in these Super Formula Lights race cars. Then you may try and get a little bit gutsy and go for an attempt heading into the turn 6 and 7 hairpin. Then after that long section spent turning most of the time, you have a small little reprieve with some kinks thrown in as well with turn 8 and 9. Then you go into the tight twistiness towards the end of this lap. That Dunlop chicane of 10, 11, and 12 has called out many drivers in real life. Today is probably going to be no different in the sim. Then we head through the final twisty corners to end off this lap, and while technicality is the biggest challenge heading through the final sector here at Fuji International Speedway, there is danger lurking in the air. It really is on the ground, that being those yellow sausage curbs that litter this racetrack. I have seen GT3 cars go flying in an Apex Run series in the past here at this track, and I have a feeling that it's going to be no different here in these small, tiny, and very plucky Super Formula Lights cars. A whole lot of challenge here at Fuji International Speedway, but I think it's going to put on some incredible racing as well.
Of course, Fuji Speedway has one of the longest straights in motorsports, a 1.4 kilometer straight. That front straight, that's going to provide a great overtaking opportunity. Of course, getting the draft in the Super Formula Lights cars is going to provide some help as well. Let's take a look at the points here for the ARA Super Formula Lights. And currently, Leonard Schneibel currently leading the charge. And again, if you weren't here last week for the races, you should have been here because we had a great time at Misano. Lee Aberdeen in second in the pro class, and Tobias Olsen in third. Ben Ford, 100 points to his name in the fourth spot, and Nicholas Rabusin in the fifth spot. Matt Jess Trubakin in the sixth spot with Istvan Dexy. Tok Balutov, with 93 points, tied for the sixth spot as well. Glamsetter, 92 points, 1 point back away in this tight little midfield pack. And of course, a lot of teams, a lot of drivers still trying to pick some other points up as well. Finishing the top 10, George Sazonov with 82 points, Zemstra with 77 points, sitting in the 11th spot. Hedlund, 0 points. Same with Pilbean. I don't think, were they even here last week? I can't remember if they even made it last week here. So, but that is the points look at the pro class. And now let's take a look at amateurs, Ron.
Alrighty, here we go. In the AM category, it's Fabio Grassetto leading that in that 206 car for Alcantech NHR by Nyman Racing. 106 points on the board as things stand at the moment. That's a Canadian of Bozueta, second. 82 points on the board right now. That's tied for third between the Russian of Yuri Grigorenko and Yannick Pletcher. 77 points on the board between those drivers. And right behind, we have another tie, that being between Tom Bryant as well as Craig Verlogic from Denmark. Actually, I nearly said the Danish Republic. That's not a country. He is from Denmark, and those two are in P5 and P6 in the standings respectively. Then you have Toby Ward in 7th, currently at a grand total of 72 points. It's only one right behind the two drivers in front of him. Jeff Lutz in 8th, Bognar in 9th, and Josh Sentence is going to round out your top 10. And so far, the only drivers to actually race so far this season. Some drivers getting hit by the DDoS attacks that affected iRacing last week. I saw Jay Walsh down there, who's a force to be reckoned with in the AM category in the last open wheel Apex Run series, that being the Apex Racing Academy F4 Championship earlier on this year. But now we've got some more drivers, some new faces making their debut in this season. I think this qualifying session that we're in right now, along with the races that we have in store this afternoon, are going to be really interesting just to see how these new drivers try and acclimate themselves to the series.
Of course, our format is a split heat races. Top 3 go on forward, and then of course we split them up into a B and A main, and top 3, top 2. Right? I gotta remember the format being. Thank you. It's going to be top 6 from the heat races, and the top 3 from the B main. So B final here. So right now we have the pro class out on track. Tobias Olsen following along with him, only about a 10th back from Grassetto on the board here. Lee Aberdeen going fastest among the amateurs, a 132 for him. Currently on the pole. Grassetto in the 2nd spot in the pros. Tobias Olsen in the 3rd spot. Mark Swan in 4th. And Ron, what do you think of these lap times? A 132 flat pretty much for Lee Aberdeen. Grassetto 132.060.
The main thing that's sticking out to me right now is the fact that the front two in this qualifying session are separated by barely any air, 100th of a second separating the two as it stands at the moment. We could have some spoilers though in this series considering the high participation and the two different classes on offer for these drivers. We do have a split qualifying session earlier on before this broadcast went to air. All the AM drivers were out there on the circuit setting their qualifying times. Now we have the pro driver, so Grosseto not going to be able to improve, but that is still a very impressive lap time for the AM driver of Grosseto. 1 minute 32.060 compared to Aberdeen's pole time of a 132.050. Incredibly close up and down this field right now. Currently between Aberdeen at the front and Thomas Ward all the way at the back, the field is separated by less than 2 seconds currently. It is a very close qualifying session, and we still have a decent amount of time left to go. a tick over 18 minutes on the board right now of this 22-minute long session, and this is really sticking out like a sore thumb. Thank you, Josh, for switching our attention to Leonard Schneibel one last time out in Misano, but this qualifying session is not going to plan at the moment. He's only about 6/10 of a second off of Aberdeen, but with how close this field is, that gap and that small little margin of time around this 1.5 minute long racetrack has resulted in him qualifying 13th as things stand at the moment. So the German at Schneibel at this point, he's going to have to kick on the afterburner if he wants to get up towards the north end of the field where he very much wants to be.
Yeah, he's currently leading the points. Had a great A feature win, or A final win, we will say. 148 kilometers per hour as he goes into turn 10 and 11. He's picking up the throttle now. Again, this is the technical part of the track. You could have probably the best straight line, best top speed car, but that won't matter when you get down through turns 10 all the way to 16. One mistake or your car doesn't turn all that well, it's going to be very difficult to get through here. Here comes Schneibel out of turn 16, goes down the front straight. He's going to have a little bit of help, has a little bit of a toe in front of him, and he will cross the line here. The line a little bit farther down than our race last week, and crosses the line. Schneibel moves into the 5th spot, a 132.1, so into the top 5. Lee Aberdeen currently in the pits, so Tobias Olsen is still out there on track, it looks like, and trying to improve. At Lee Aberdeen did put up a 131.9 as the fastest lap time, and I'm wondering if anybody can get really north of that. That's going to be a pretty tight run, especially in a car like this where it's not going to let you throw it into the corners the way that you maybe want it to, especially when you get especially in turns 10 and 11 and 12.
Oh, by the end of this lap, these tires are screaming in pain, especially heading through 100R, that being the long right-hander of turns 4 and 5. These tires are going to be getting a whooping, thankfully, because of the format that we have, considering the longest race we have is only 18 minutes, that being the A final later on this afternoon. We won't have to worry about pit stops. However, these drivers are still maybe thinking about tire management and trying to save their tires for the ends of these races. And Olsen has a beautiful drift coming out of the corner, trying to stay away with all the willpower he can. Panasonic corner with those yellow killer sausage curbs on the outside. He did not want to hit those at all. Coming to the line right now, is it going to be an improvement from him towards the end of this qualifying session? It is, but it's not enough to grab the pole. Alston moves up to a 131.993. However, Aberdeen improved to a 131.944. So right now he is slotted P2 in this qualifying session, and with less than a minute left to go here on the board, Adam, we're coming to the end of this qualifying session, because here in these Apex Run series, they don't allow these drivers extra time once that qualifying session comes to an end. Once you hit that 22 minutes, it is done. So these drivers looking to get in their final lap times while the track is still hot.
Dexy now coming into turn 9, into turn 10. Is he improving at all? It looks like he's improving on his personal lap. Nothing purple, but green on his sector times. And gets a little bit over the curve. That's going to affect him pretty much. Just with a little bit of the out of the corner throttle. But here comes Dexy. Good apex into turn 13, but it's not going to be enough time. And he will not improve on position. He'll be 14th. But a good run there by Lee Aberdeen, grabbing the pole. So So we are going to get going racing here, Ron, and let's look at the first lineup for tonight.
Alrighty, here we go. Race number 1. It's going to be Lee Aberdeen, the Australian, leading them to green. Grosseto is going to be starting alongside in P2. Very good qualifying performance from the AM driver. Leonard Schneibel going to be starting this race in 3rd. Alex Pilbeam, the newcomer to the series, in 4th. Tokbalatov, the Russian driver, in P5. That's Headland in 6th. Rasmussen in 7th. Ben Ford in P number 8. It's Yannick Plescher in 9th. Ekbolt in P number 10. And rounding out your 11-car field for this first heat race is going to be Britt Tom Bryant. Again, 10 minutes long is this first heat race, so not a whole lot of time for these drivers to try and get their bearings straight and try and figure out their way to get into the top 6, because as you said before, Adam, only the top 6 out of these heat races will punch their ticket into that A final later on today. The rest of them are going to be bound to that B final, and as we've seen over the years here on Apex Racing TV, those B finals can be incredibly intense at times. So really, for all these drivers, the main goal, firstly, avoid the chaos that we were talking about that could possibly happen heading into turn number 1, but secondly, just finish in the top 6. It doesn't have to be a win, it doesn't have to be a podium, it just needs to be in the top 6. If you make it there, you are going to be golden. You have the golden ticket to make it into the main show later on tonight. A lot of things on these drivers' minds, a lot of things on our mind, Adam. This is going to be some fun.
It's going to be absolutely fun as we see drivers now starting to form up on the grid. It's a standing start, so we'll have the lights turn on here in just a moment. And I think we're going to be in for one heck of a ride, especially down this straight on this start. Lights start to turn on here. 3, 4, 5 lights on. 5 lights will go out, and away we go here. Lee Aberdeen gets a good start. We'll pull over to cut off Tobias Olsen as they go, making the run down into turn number 1. And
Here
Tobias
comes Olsen, contact!
In fact, they spun around and chaos in the front of the field here for in the ARA Super Formula Lights heat race number 1. And who comes out on top? Thomas Hedlund, and he's already gained 5 positions thanks to the contact with Lee Aberdeen. And I don't think that was was that Olsen who made the contact? I think we'll have to relook at that one when we get a replay. And where are we at here? Everybody starting to go single file as they go down into turn number 10, Ron. And well, chaos strikes again in the heat races, and for some drivers like Grossetto's going to be upset about that, I think. And here we go again. Let's take a look. Front of the field, it's Aberdeen. He gets good run, and that is Lee
Grossetto
Aberdeen and Grossetto, yeah.
Yeah, I can't really say that Grossetto is going to be upset about anyone other than himself. I was expecting him to try and go for the move. I really will take a look at another angle here, this time heading their way into turn number 1. This is from Headland, who had a fantastic run heading through turn 1, up 5 positions, as you can see from the graphic, and a little bit of contact heading through turn number 1. And that was something I hinted at during the track map and track preview that I gave at the very start. With that surprisingly long run until you head into turn number 1 and have to get on that brake pedal, you're going to expect some drivers to try and go side by side heading into that corner, especially on lap number 1. Grossetto, I'll be brutally honest, I think Grossetto really screwed himself over there, because he's in pit lane. He is pretty much entirely out of it. He is exiting the pits now, but he is still going to be massively on the back foot. And unless there's like a 7-car pileup that happens a little bit farther up the road, there is not a hope in hell for Fabio Grossetto to make his way back up into the top 6. And I can't really say that that was entirely his fault, because I think that it was mixed responsibility for those 2 drivers, but still tough stuff to see at the very beginning of this race, and horrible start for Grossetto and Lee Aberdeen as well. He's starting to feel some pressure from Ford right behind, and Brian is looking to pick up the pieces if there's some more extracurricular contact. So Lee Aberdeen, he is on the hot seat dramatically. So the driver that started this race from the pole, the drivers that started this race on the front row, they may both be looking at the realistic chance of them being bopped down to the B final. That would be dramatic here at Fuji.
Well, Lee Aberdeen may have some additional damage that we may not even be seeing, as Ben Ford gets that nice draft down the front straight, makes the move into 5th place, and Lee Aberdeen also having to defend as much as he can here, but now we're up to Pilbeam, and Alex Pilbeam currently in the 3rd spot, trying to make the move for 2nd on Schneibel, but Schneibel defending well here as they go into turn 3 and 4. Pilbeam, I think he's feeling good. I think he's going to find that draft very useful down the front straight, but he's just going to have to set up the move here, because it's once you're really past turn 6, it's hard to make a move, especially into turn 10 with how narrow it gets. And we got a replay of the pass down. Here's the pass for Pilbeam and Schneibel. Pilbeam just battling side by side down into the first corner here. Pilbeam makes a dive pretty much by Schneibel there. So
could have ended in
hold it
tears.
straight. Yeah, it could have ended in absolute tears. That gearbox swings, it's a little bit longer than you would expect it to be. So Thomas Headloo now leading by over a second, which is huge news right now in heat race number 1. Lee Aberdeen now down to 6, and there's people behind him. That is going to be Janik Pletcher. Pletcher's up 2 spots already, trying to make up 3. Pletcher gets the draft side by side into turn 1, and good defense here by Lee Aberdeen. Lee Aberdeen was the pole sitter and now is defending for the transfer. Side by side, almost goes around the outside there for Pletcher. Pletcher, that would have been a brave move, I think, if he would have tried that. Ravnussen trying to make a move happen as well. He's maybe potentially thinking of a potential transfer as well, automatically to the A final tonight. And Ron, of course, the battle for the transfer happens. Pletcher gets a nose out in front and had the transfer spot for just a second. Tried to make a move into turn 10, but it wasn't going to happen. Honestly, and here they come. This is going to set up nicely, though, for Pletcher having the draft. And Aberdeen, I don't think he's going to have much of a draft in front of him with Ben Ford, and Ravnussen may be comfortable as well to make a move happen here. Lee Aberdeen could lose 2 positions down the front straight.
Yeah, I don't have a good feeling about Lee Aberdeen at all. Of course, picking up some sort of damage in that incident that happened earlier on in the race with Grosseto. His main saving grace right now, though, is that Rasmussen has a beautiful run on Pletcher. They're going to be side-by-side, hang their way down the start-finish straightaway, and now you can see Pletcher trying to make it 3 wide, and look at Aberdeen, just, it was like he dropped an anchor going down that start-finish straightaway. Pletcher getting the move done to move into that transfer spot, and Rasmussen getting side-by-side with Aberdeen, who's all kinds of squirrely on the exit of turn number 2. And look at Tom Bryan now trying to pick up the pieces to slip his way into P number 8. Maybe a little bit of contact heading into turn number 3. Disastrous stuff from Lee Aberdeen, and he can't really be too shocked as there's a huge crash in front. That's Rasmussen and Pletcher, and what in the world happened there? Heading through 100R of turn 4 and 5. You can see that car of Pletcher. That car is absolutely destroyed. That's ready for the junkyard along with Rasmussen. That may be a saving grace for Aberdeen, because he's now only 1 overtake away from getting himself back up into the transfer positions. And here's what happened. Rasmussen very, very close. A little bit of contact that just got all kinds of squirrely. And that was a horrible and ridiculous looking collision between those two. Maybe a little bit of iRacing code, a bit squirrely, and made that car back very strangely and unnaturally because of that collision. But Yannick Pletcher and Nicholas Rasmussen, it was the smallest bit of contact heading through one of the fastest corners on this track, leads to an absolutely horrible collision. And as I've been speaking, Lee Aberdeen, who, as I started speaking, was in the transfer spots, he fell out of the transfer spots all the way down to 9th. He's now back in 6th, and he currently has a pretty big gap between himself and Bryant. I think there's a mistake for Bryant because those two were pretty much right on top of each other and going side by side just a lap ago. But now Lee Aberdeen, who we thought was completely screwed over in all of this, he's now running comfortably in 6th.
What? Let's take a look at what happened to Bryant here. And Bryant and Lee Aberdeen battling here. Bryant in front of that blue and white car. Bryant just loses the rear, almost takes out Lee Aberdeen, but ends up just sliding backwards and losing a bunch of time. I want to go back to that crash in this heat race because that was absolutely insane. You can see the front wing. You can see the front wing here as we take a look at an outer shot here. Rasmussen just gets his wing right under the lights there.
Oh my God.
Of Pletcher, and Pletcher just goes for a ride, just lifts up the car ever so slightly there, and that's the end of his day. And that, it looks like netcode, but that's actually the wing just getting underneath the car.
Yeah, just a small little, it was a marginal piece of contact between those two, front end to back end, and in all of that, it's completely turned this race completely on its head. And right as I say that, Schnebel and Pilbeam going side by side, hang it to turn number 1, very close to contact again. Pilbeam very aggressive on the cut-in on Schneibel. Schneibel was very lucky to get away from that overtake without any sort of damage. Hedlund, I gotta say, and all of the smoke and sparks have consumed this race thus far. He is on cloud 9 right now in that ice-cold racing car, up 5 spots from where he started, and in a race where he was going to be involved in that chaotic battle for the final transfer spots. Hedlund has just got that lead with all that drama hang through turn number 1 on lap number 1, and ever since then, he's just completely checked out of this race. He hasn't grown a massive gap, as it's only about 0.8 of a second between himself and Schneibel, now growing to over a second, heading through the Dunlop chicane. But Hedlund, actually making a small little mistake heading through that chicane. So Hedlund, maybe the commentator's jinx playing full effect right now. Right as I was saying that, Hedlund has put together a very good race, starting to feel a bit more pressure from Schneibel, but I have a feeling unless there's some sort of massive mistake for Thomas Hedlund in the final corner of this race, it's just going to be too little too late for Schnebel to take the win here in Heat 1.
Thomas Hedlund driving down the front straight. He'll win heat race number 1, and if I remember correctly, that should put him on the pole here tonight in the A main. And Leonard Schneibel in second. A good run from him in avoiding all of that chaos at the beginning. Alex Pilbeam makes his first A main of the season. Also want to note Lee Aberdeen coming home to 6th. Bryant, after almost having a good run there, just unfortunate series of events ended his run into an A main. He'll run the B feature later on. Grissetto, how do we describe his race there, Ron? Kind of just an kind of ended at turn 1 just right away, and he will be into the B main or the B final here tonight. So we'll see him later on try and race his way into the A final. Let's look at grid for the heat race number 2 here. And on the pole, Tobias Olsen, and in second, Mark Swan. Third is going to be Matt Jestrubakin, and in fourth, the 125 of Kevin Zemstra. Fifth is going to be the 118 of Christian Glamsetter. In sixth, George Saznoff in the 165. Seventh, Dexy, and eighth is going to be No Juice Jed Velas. Ninth, Jeff Lutz. 10th is going to be Jay Walsh in the 11th spot, and the final spot, the 266 of Toby Ward. So that is the grid, and looks like everybody's lined up and ready to go here. We're going to get lights on very quickly here. 3 lights, 4 lights, 5 lights on, and all the lights will go out. Tobias Olsen going to try and get all the way over. Almost.
Well, that's aggressive.
Second place of Swain, almost into the wall here and defending very hard into turn 1. That's going to be I'm going to be interested to see how that is taken here, especially later on in this heat race. This is heat race number 2, and of course Tobias Olsen pulling off a very defensive move to protect his lead. And I understand why, but he almost drove Mark Swain into the wall.
That was a ridiculous block between those two. It shows you how important these first laps are in these heat races, trying to scrap and claw and try and get any position that you can out there on the racetrack. Again, the top 6 advance into that A final. The rest are bopped down to the B final that we'll have in probably about 15 to 20 minutes. So all these drivers racing as hard as they can on lap number 1 and making contact. That was some pretty significant contact heading through the chicane, and that's a spinner a little bit farther up the road, and a pile up with multiple cars around and front wings flying.
Oh, you can't park there. Got to get back going. And yes, lost wing for Matt Jastrubakian. He'll have to head to the pits to get that fixed up. But that's unfortunate because, yeah, you need a wing on this track for sure. Toby Ward, though, he will be thankful he was not really involved with that. He's moved up 2 spots and trying to get closer to that position, that transfer position. The only AM driver in the transfer currently it's Vilal. Excuse me, if I can talk. Villas currently in that is the only amateur driver, but now Dexy, he's making a move here for the 4th spot. He is trying to go around the outside, but what a move there by Najus. Najus trying to keep it on the inside, but now Dexy around the outside gets a good run as they go into turn number 6. Has to get on the brakes hard, but now almost making contact side by side, and yes, over runs on its head, and that is no juice. Najus out of this one for sure. And Dexy, that was some very argy-bargy racing, we'll say. As we say here in the States, Rubbins racing, as Ron mentioned earlier about this track. It was meant to be an oval. And it would have been I would say it's probably would have been a high-speed oval. Let's take a look at the replay once again with Dexy on the inside. Dexy slides up the track, gets spun around, tries to correct. Well, the car pretty much out of control at that point, and Najus goes for a wild ride, and his heat race will come to an end, and he will start in the B final here tonight. But Tobias Olsen holding on to a 1.8 second lead, and Dexy now losing the transfer spot to Lutz, and Lutz now in 6th. We have 3 amateur drivers now into the transfer spots here, Ron, and for those amateur drivers, that's going to feel pretty good for them, especially that they don't have to race in a B final later on.
And one of those drivers I see right now is Jay Walsh, and I mentioned earlier on in this broadcast, Walsh has run in some Apex Run Series in the past. My mind harkens back to him running in the Apex Racing Academy F4 Championship earlier on this year in a very similar looking race car, and he drove very similarly to what he's doing right now, staying out of the chaos, staying out of everyone's trouble, and just cutting through the field like a hot knife through butter, avoiding all of the drama. You can see him right now running in P5, pretty safe as it stands at the moment. He currently has about a 2-second gap between himself and Lutz, who is running in that final transfer spot, but Lutz and Detsy are actually looking to try and battle here in the not too distant future, which is a little bit surprising considering the probable damage that Dexy has in that race car. And here's another replay of the drama that's been going on all throughout this race. This was Toby Ward sweeping around the outside, trying to sweep around the outside and having to go into the runoff area. That was a ridiculous ridiculous send, and you could see the contact that happened a little bit farther up the road. That was two pro drivers getting caught up in that. Multiple aerial acrobatics happening so far in this race. We just had a Super Formula Lights car pull a wheelie, and here's a better angle. Was it Glamsetter? Yes, it was Glamsetter running over the back leg. It was a monster truck maneuver. Actually, no, that was Glamsetter getting hit by Gestrombachen in there. But two drivers, that was a weird looking incident heading through the chicane towards the end of this lap. But we have seen some strange stuff from the second heat race, and we just barely ticked over the halfway mark, Adam.
It's been kind of crazy, especially in the opening laps here. Tobias Olsen, Kevin Zemstra, 1 and 2, and it looks like the field has sort of just spread out at this point. No real close battles. You see Dexy now out of a transfer spot, and can we get his replay with his incident with Najus, just so we can just have one more look at that, because that was a crazy incident as well. But Tobias Olsen, Zemstra, Saznoff. And let's take a look here again. Side-by-side battle with Najus and Dexy. Dexy just gets up a little bit further, doesn't fully clear him, and sideswipes Najus onto his head. And one more time overhead, and you can see how close these two are. Dexy,
very aggressive on corner exit, it must be said. And then, you could see that extra bit of contact. Oh, that was such a bizarre looking accident. Yeah.
A little bit of netcode, I think, involved in that as well, it looked like. So, but for Najus, he is not out there. 2 laps down. He'll have to try and race his way into this one immediately after this race. So we'll have our B main or B final immediately after this. Tobias Olsen, Kevin Zemstra, 3 seconds apart. Zemstra and George Saznoff signed up in third. Mark Swain, or Swan, our first amateur into the transfer, into the automatic transfers into the A final in that 4th spot, as well as Jay Walsh. Jeff Lutz, the Belgium, currently in that 6th spot. So some good. Honestly, it's a lot less chaotic than I expected in these heat races, but we still got a B final coming up here, Ron, and you got to wonder for some of these drivers, they are going to want to get into this A feature tonight, because we had a kind of a tougher part of the schedule, and this is going to be an opportunity for some drivers to pick up some big points.
Yeah, and you definitely want to do that at the very beginning of this season. This isn't the longest season schedule in the world either. We only have 8 races for these drivers to try and win, as Dexy has a very wide run coming out of the final corner and gets a bit too flirtatious with that outside killer yellow sausage curb. There is going to be a whole lot of storylines to follow when it comes time for that B main later on today. Got a bunch of AM drivers that are going to punch their ticket into the A final, including this man, Mark Swan, up actually down 2 spots from where he started this race. So it was a very good qualifying performance from the driver who's currently running in the 4th position, still tracking some decent lap times as well, running effectively in no man's land as well. The gap between himself and Sazonov in P3 is pretty big, and the gap between himself and Jay Walsh right behind is pretty expansive as well. So Mark Swan at this stage looking to keep it on the road. Not a whole lot of time left to go. I believe we will be taking the white flag this time by. But getting back to what I was going to say and talking about what we could expect from the B main that we have coming up in just a few moments time. I mean, just looking through the drivers that are getting bopped down to that race here, we've got Gedvalis, who's probably looking to have some sort of retribution. I won't say retaliation or like wrecking someone on purpose, but he's not very happy after how he was raced with Dexy during this race. Both of those drivers, unless something dramatic happens in this final lap, both of those drivers are going to end up in that B final. We've also got multiple pro drivers. Dexy's one of them, along with Gestrombachen and Glamsetter, who are running comfortably in those transfer spots when that incident took them entirely out of contention. And looking at what happened in the race we had earlier on, Grosseto was caught up in that lap 1, turn 1 incident during that first heat race of the day. He's going to be looking to try and get something as well. So as we approach this final lap, despite the fact that there's still about 14 corners left for these drivers to try and tackle for one last time in this second heat race, my attention is on that B final because there are a ton of storylines that we need to keep in mind heading into that one.
Yes, we do, as the white flag is displayed. Checker flag next time by for Olsen. So we take an aerial view of Fuji Speedway, as it's called. Again, not a actual speedway like you would hear in the United States. Those are OLS, of course, Daytona International Speedway being one of the most famous ones, along with Talladega Speedway. But this one in Japan was built to be an oval, but it's now a road course, and it provides some very high-speed racing. And for Tobias Olsen, has managed to get by in this heat race, did not get caught up in any incidences. Of course, got to be careful with the sausage curbs. Seen him take a couple of those, and I'm kind of getting a little nervous. I don't want to see him fail this lap here as he comes down the front straight. Tobias Olsen, he'll get into tonight's A final by winning heat race number 2. Kevin Zemstra, he'll come home to second. George Sazonov currently in the third spot. Mark Swan in fourth. Jay Walsh coming home to fifth in the 216 car. And the 213 car, Jeff Lutz, he'll be our final transfer through. Dexy, he'll have to shake this one off, and they'll have to get ready for the next one immediately after. His next race is going to be immediately after this one. Toby Ward as well, he did not transfer through, and he'll have to go again next race. Jester Bakken, I would have thought he maybe would have had a chance into the transfer spot tonight, but no, he does not get there. He'll race in the B feature after losing his wing. He still doesn't even have his front wing. He didn't even pit. And
either of them do.
Well.
Oh, actually, okay. It looked okay. His front wing's black. So at first look, I was like, did Glamsetter not pit to repair the damage either as he locks up down the straightaway? But yeah, maybe some data collection from Jestrom Bakken to run the rest of that race without a front wing. Some strange stuff happening here for the second round of the Apex Racing Academy Super Formula Light Series. And let's take a quick look at the starting grid for this B final. 14 minutes long, and it's going to be Tom Bryan leading them to green. Istvan Dexy is going to be joining him on the front row. Akbalit in third. Toby Ward in fourth. Grassetto, he's going to be a man on a mission starting this race in fifth. Jestrom Bakken in sixth. Pletcher in seventh. Glamsetter in 8th, Rasmussen in P number 9, and it's going to be Gedvelas rounding out your 10-car field for this 14-minute long B final, and there are storylines up and down this field. This is going to be a good one.
Keep an eye on Fabio Grassetto and Dexy. Dexy looking to get into his second A feature of the season. Grassetto was also in last, was he? Yeah, he was in last week's A final. So here we go. 5 lights will turn on, 5 lights out, and away we go. What chaos will we see here at Fuji Speedway in the ARA Super Formula Lights as they go into turn 1? Tom Bryan already falling down to third. Again, top 3. Massive carnage already in the back of the field, mid-pack of the field. And that's Toby Ward. Toby Ward falling down the order. And now 3, almost 4 wide as they go down into turn 3. And this is what absolute chaos have we already witnessed here in this B feature as we see 7th and 8th currently falling back. That's Pletcher and Ward. And again, unfortunate night for Pletcher. Pletcher was so good in that heat race. He looked like he had a good run going for him, and unfortunately just ended in tears. Is now Akbalut and Dexy side by side for the race lead. Again, Bryant now, he's trying to go for the transfer spot. He doesn't get it, and he locks up the brakes, falls back, and now, excuse me, that wasn't Bryant, that was Grassetto. Thomas Bryant now back into the transfer spot. Grassetto was trying to make the move, and now we have a battle again for the race lead, but we got to keep our eyes on this transfer spot. Grassetto, he has made up the time again, all the way back to Tom Bryant. Tom Bryant currently sitting in the final transfer spot.
Honestly, as much as Brian is going to feel the pressure dramatically from Grosseto, they're going to be side by side going down the start-finish straightaway. I am still somewhat confident, quietly confident, in what Tom Bryan can do. He was up towards the north end of the field in that second heat race, and despite the fact he's still holding on to that final transfer spot with how hard Akbalet and Dexy were battling and how hard they will be battling as they're now side by side yet again. Actually, no, that's Brian and Dexy going side by side. My apologies. Dexy falling back right now. They're going to be 3 wide, heading their way into turn number 3. It's going to be close between all these drivers. One of them, thankfully, backs out of it, and Dexy is going to hold on to that P2 spot. And an amazing start from Akbalet. The Dutch driver started this race in 3rd. He made it up to the lead, heading into turn number 1. It was a brilliant start from him. Cut his way through the front runners like a hot knife through butter, was able to capitalize, but a little bit farther in the back, Gestrombakken and Rasmussen, 2 drivers from the Nordic region of Europe, they are in big trouble. I believe Gestrombakken is actually already out of this race, along with Rasmussen down pit lane, so Gestrombakken with no hope of making it into the main show tonight. He has called it quits, and right now still hard racing, with Grosseto feeling really racy. With Brian Grosseto at this stage, I feel like he needs to heave the warning that he himself set during that first heat race earlier on today. He went for a move hang into turn number 1. It went disastrously wrong, and Grosseto, after that, he got sent down to this race. But the one way to counter that and try and make up for yourself is not to be even more aggressive. Bryant, he's not, I'm not gonna say he's a slow driver by any means, but Grosseto qualified for this race in 3rd. He was up towards the north end of the field. Grosseto just needs to exercise a little bit of patience and try and remain calm, but he may not be calm for a while as well. He's trying to get that move done on Bryant. Grosseto is going to be stuck in a 3-wide fight, and look at that from Glamstetter, trying to go for the 2-for-1 deal, heading into turn number 1, not close enough as he overshoots a corner and drops back to P5. But Grosseto at this stage, he is racing in the midst of a hornet's nest as Akbalet and Dexy start to pull away.
Tom Bryan has got to feel a little bit maybe I should just back out of a lot of this. He is getting swarmed all over the place with drivers trying to get into that final transfer spot. Grosseto now holds on to it, and Glamstetter, he's setting his eyes forward. He knows he's got the pace. Looking at lap times here for Glamstetter. Glamstetter currently a 134.5, for Grosseto 134.6. So yes, Glamstetter does have the pace to be in that final transfer spot. There's the there's the last lap times there, a 134.5 and a 134.6 for Grosseto. Grosseto, the Italian driver, though, getting closer to Dexy. And this is going to turn into a battle for this second spot here. Glamstetter, has he made a mistake? Has he dropped off the pace? Because he is so far back now.
Yeah, this has been a disastrous run from Glamstetter so far this lap. Started at 3 wide with the drivers a little bit farther up the road, but has had a big mistake. We're following now, heading through the tight, twisty section towards the end of this lap. And you can see, I think he may have clipped that curb and got him all kinds of squirrely. That was coming out of turn at number 13. Again, goes for a half spin, that time heading through turn 15. So a double whammy for Glamstetter has got him all kinds of screwed up. He's running in 5th right now, and unless there's some sort of major drama that happens between Grosseto and Dexy, who are battling hard, I think it's going to be game, set, match for Glamstetter. We probably won't see him in that A final, but again, never say never. There's a lot that can happen between now and the checkered flag. We could see these drivers come to blows. Dexy, he got involved in an incident earlier on going side by side. Grosseto got involved in an incident earlier going side by side. These two drivers are incredibly aggressive, and they can make a mistake if they get forced into one, but right now, keeping it fairly clean and tame right now. We're only 4 laps into this race, not even at the halfway mark, with about 6 minutes on the clock of this 14-minute long race. But Dexy and Grosseto are going to put on a show for us. But look at Tom Bryant, the driver of the 242 car. The AM driver, despite the fact he's about 3 seconds back of Grosseto, holding on to that final transfer spot. Last time by, he said his personal best at a 134.282. And if those drivers a little bit farther up the road come to blows, he may be in the catbird seat to try and gain some time. So Bryant not out of it at all. Dexy and Grosseto, they at this stage need to keep it clean, because if they keep it in one piece and keep it on the racetrack, they have a golden ticket to make their way into that A final. But they're still racers. They're still going to battle and claw and scrape for every single position they can. And they're also catching up to Akbalit too. So this could be a 3-car fight here in the not too distant future, Adam.
It could very well be a 3-car fight, but that's if Brian can get to the tail of this field as well. He's 4.1 seconds back off the leader, but look at Dexy though. Dexy just defending hard. He slowly has closed the gap to the leader, but I think that's Akbalut currently making a couple of mistakes. But Grosseto, he is just honing in here. We just want to remind people we got some drivers currently out of this race. This is the most drivers we've seen out of a B final here. And let's take a look at the replay from earlier with some earlier incidents. Jet Balas.
Oh, another car airborne. Holy cow. That car, I think we may have sent one out of the ballpark, Adam. I'm going to be brutally honest. That did not look good at all.
I didn't realize Airbus made Super Formula Lights cars. Wow.
Yeah,
that was incredible. Just,
oh my God.
He's dead. He's just dead. He's not coming back from that. Wow.
Yeah, that's, well, I'm curious, did Pletcher actually ballpark it there? Did he go over the fence? He definitely hit it and destroyed that Super Formula Lights car. There's no coming back from that. And at this stage, there's only 5 cars left out on the track, and you're seeing most of them at the north end of the field running in those transfer spots. Akbalit, that gap between himself and Dexy has closed dramatically. It was about 9/10 of a second not very long ago. Now it's down to under 2/10. Grosseto looking to possibly eye up a win in this B final. That'd certainly make up for that early incident that he had and poor finish in that first heat race earlier on this afternoon. Akbalit at this stage, he shouldn't feel too much pressure, because if these 2 drivers overtake him, he still has a pretty significant gap between himself and Bryant for that final transfer spot. So all these drivers just need to keep it clean. But as I said not very long ago, they're all racers. They're going to try and battle and claw for every position they can. So Akbalit, he's going to try desperately to hold on to that P1 spot. Dexy, he's going to try and come back from an incident that took him out of that second heat race. He's going to try and grab that win. And Grosseto as well, as I said a few moments ago, he is going to try and add a little bit of redemption after a he entered this race as the leader in the AM standings, and currently, if there's possible drama here, he would not be making his way into that A main. So right now, Grosseto, what he needs to do is keep it clean. But right now, what it looks like he's going to do is make it 3 wide between himself, Dexy, and the car on the outside of our at one point leader, Akbalit. It's going to be Grosseto and Dexy now side by side for the lead. And I think Grosseto got the move done. Yes, he did. He cleared both of those cars coming out of turn number 1. And the Italian of Grosseto, who started this race not even in the transfer spots, has cut through nicely and is now running in that P1 spot. Very nicely played from the Italian.
Well, it's still a long ways to go in this one. In Dexy, we've seen what happens on a track like this. If you get a little too close and you're racing side by side, and that can end your race pretty much, as we've seen in heat races 1 and 2, and now in this B final. And Akbalut, he's not going to be going too far away from this battle. And Tom Bryant, he is just watching this. He is watching these 3 battle each other and hoping maybe somebody makes just a slight bit of contact or makes an error, makes a mistake, and he'll be into the transfer spot himself after he started on the pole. He is now 4 seconds away from this pack for the race lead. And going back up to the race lead, Dexy and Grosseto have somewhat pulled the gap away from Akbalut. And Akbalut, he's going to try and use that draft to his advantage, but I think he's going to be a little bit too far back. Dexy, he's going to use that draft to his advantage as well down the front straight, but he is also too far away to make a move as well.
This is still a very impressive result from all of these drivers, and a well-needed one as well. Grosseto and Dexy, as I said, looking to pick up the pieces after unfortunate exits out of those heat races. And Akbalit, that would be a very good result from him to move his way into that A final. All these drivers have deserved it, and with, I think, about 2 laps to go, I believe they will be taking the white flag. Not next time by, but the time after that, so I guess we would be at about 2.5 laps to go in this B final race. Pretty good result from all of these drivers, and they're running comfortably right now. 5-second gap between Akbalit in P3 and Brian in P4. I really don't see any scenario in which Brian actually makes it, and even though I said that I was somewhat confident in him actually being able to make his way in, at this stage, it's just too much of a tall order. He cannot close up that gap on pace and pace alone. Coming to 2 to go. Actually, will we be coming to 2 to go, or actually are we going to be taking the white flag this time by? It's going to be borderline, but either way, Brian would not be able to close a 5-second gap in the span of about 2 laps. So at this stage, he is hoping for Grosseto and Dexy to try and come to blows. Well, those two separated by 9/10 of a second. I don't think it's going to be enough. And it's going to be very close coming to that start-finish line. As we take a look at a replay, I believe we are on the white flag, and here's another replay of that Yannick Pletcher incident. And is he out of it? Yes, he is. Yannick Pletcher ballparked it. Well done.
He's dead. He's not coming back from that.
I think we may need to hold a moment of silence for Pletcher. That was a significant collision between the two of those, but side by side heading through turn number 3, that you're kind of asking for it heading through that corner, because that's tricky enough single file. I feel like I can never get it right on my own, let alone going side by side with another competitor in a series like this with so much to try and gain. $650 worth of Apex Racing Academy subscriptions are up for grabs for the drivers in this series. So to try and go for a move like that, hang through one of the fastest and most challenging corners on this very fast and very challenging race course, it was going to end like that, but Pletcher, sadly, we have lost him. He shot it out of the ballpark. That, I think, is the first time in my year and a half broadcasting here with Apex Racing TV that has happened. So we're seeing some new ground be broken here from this race. I'm not sure if that's a good or a bad thing. We'll just call it an indifferent thing.
It's Fuji. I won't say that.
Enough.
It's Fuji. It is Fuji. Grosseto now 132.1, the fastest lap time for him. And he is looking to put himself into tonight's A feature. And there's the white. Is that the checker or the white? I think that's the checker flag. It is the checker flag. It's Grosseto and Dexy. Dexy now into the A main, and the little Akbalut currently in that 3rd spot will transfer in. We'll say goodbye to Tom Bryant and Christian Glabcenter, and you got to feel a little bit an unfortunate night for them, and as well as Pletcher and Ged Velas, who as well had 2 very unfortunate incidents tonight. So now we're going to get a warm-up here before we go into tonight's A main, get everybody comfortable and are ready to go. And let's take a look at the results from that B finals just one more time to go over and see who has transferred in tonight. And Ron, who do we got going into tonight's A final?
Well, for some reason, we can take a look at the pro drivers from that B final. I'm not sure. That's very strange. Here are the pros that ran there, and only one of them made it through, that being Dexy. And, okay, as you can see from the B final results, it is winning it, followed by in P2. Oh, there we go. I think we actually know that's a pros. Okay, so maybe I think we'll... Okay, here's the B final results from the drivers in the AM category. It was a pretty good shot, though, of the drivers in the pro category. Of the 4 that took the start in that B final race, only one of them ended up making through, which is a little bit of a shock, but with the contact they had earlier on, it wasn't too much of a shock. That was a dramatic start. An incident involving Justrom Bakken, which I don't even think was his fault. He just got caught up in the crosshairs, along with himself and Nicholas Rasmussen were the two drivers involved in that incident. And sadly for them, they're done. They are moving on to next race 1 week's time. We're going to be running at Spa, and they're going to be looking for some kind of redemption. After the way today has gone for them, they are going to hope for some kind of miracle. Don't have again, it's not the longest season here at the Apex Racing Academy Super Formula Light Series, only 8 races long, and after this we will already be a quarter of the way through the season, Adam. So for those drivers to be in the pro category and not make their way into the A final, it's a gut punch for them, no doubt about it.
Oh, it's got to be, and especially if you haven't made it 2 weeks in a row, and you're sitting there going, well, I need some points. You know, especially if you're points racing here with the ARA Super Formula Lights. And this is, you know, and for the guys who made it, especially if you're Glamsetter, you're going to be taking a sigh of relief. You're going, okay, I got there, I made it. All right, hard part's over, I'm in the points. Now you got to go out there. Now you got to go get that job done. And it's going to be, I think, one of the more difficult challenges, especially now. Now this is when the pay window opens. Everybody is going to be fighting for every position they possibly can. Of course, Lee Aberdeen, who was our pole sitter, he's not even going to be on the pole for this next race. So for him, he's going to be looking at, I got to make a move. I got to make a move quick. I got to get out front or be in that second spot and be right behind somebody to use their draft. And let's take a look at the lineup here when we are ready for our A final of the ARA Super Formula Lights. And let's look here. On the pole is going to be the 177 of Thomas Hedlund, and in second place, the 191 of Tobias Olsen. Row 2, 159 of Leonard Schnabel and Kevin Zamstra. Row 3, Alex Pilbein and George Stasnoff. And row 4, Anton Tokabolotov and Mark Swan. Row 5, Ben Ford, Jay Walsh. Row 6, Lee Amerdeen and Jeff Lutz. Row 7, Fabio Grassetto and Dexy. And the final starter tonight in 15, Dalil Akbalut. So that is a look at tonight's A final there. Hopefully we got through that quick enough there. And yes, we did. 5 lights on, 5 lights will go out, and away we go here at Fuji. We don't see that big move coming from pole position on the outside to defend the inside move. But here comes Hedlund. Hedlund trying to go side by side with Tobias Olsen, his teammate. And Hedlund just holding it on to the outside as they go into turn 2, going into turn 3 up next. And now Tobias Olsen trying to make a move. And now here comes Schneibel. Schneibel, he tried to shoot it down the inside. He doesn't make the move happen, and he'll fall back. And now into the clutches of Alex Pilbein. Alex Pilbein further back. And now Absolute just kind of rubbing a little bit of elbows. Elbows are absolutely out now in this A final, as Tobias Olsen leads the field still on lap number 1. Leonard Schneibel in second. He's gained a spot, and he is chasing down the race lead as he tries to go around the outside. Good inside line for Tobias Olsen to maintain the race lead. A little bit of contact we were seeing as they headed into turn number 10, what is called Dunlop Corner. But now the field still elbows out, but not making significant contact or crashing each other out as we are following along with Ben Ford. And now Zemstrom are on the outside. Who is that? Was spun around. That is Tokabolotov. And he will fall down to 15th. Back out to the race lead. Tobias Olsen, now your race leader, with Schneibel around his outside as they are going down the front straight, side by side, door to door.
Look at Pilbein.
Pilbein, he's going to get involved here. 3 wide as they go down into turn number 1.
There's still gonna be 3 wide on the brakes. Olsen trying to stick onto that lead on that inside line, managed to hold on to it beautifully, and Pilbeam with a beautiful run. He had the draft of a century coming down that start-finish straightaway, and it shot him up. Those drivers going 3 wide. That was intense stuff involving all of those cars. Tough for the drivers that have been involved in incidents a little bit farther in the back, including Lee Aberdeen, who's now running down to 15th. Disastrous start for himself, along with Tokbalatov, who got involved in that spin. That was coming out of turn number 14 not very long ago, but that was a very well executed maneuver from Pilbeam. He didn't take the lead of the race. That was just Olsen managing to defend for his life and pulling off a pretty good move himself to hold on to that lead. And speaking of a beautiful move, here is Grosseto trying to sweep around the outside of Ben Ford. Not close enough, it felt like, but they're still going to be side by side midway through the Dunlop chicane. And I'll tell you what, that run hang through the Dunlop chicane the first time by, I am dumbfounded that we didn't see some drivers have a horrible collision heading through that section. It looked very, very close, and here is what happened. This was a horrible moment. If you're Lee Aberdeen, hit the curb on that inside, a self-mistake, and that was incredibly close to him getting T-boned by Dexy. That was a car that was getting involved in that and was very close to making contact with the Australian. But this has been a horrendous race meeting for Lee Aberdeen. Qualified on the pole in that qualifying session we had earlier on, but ever since then, things have gone horribly wrong, and as it stands at the moment, he's running 15th and last in this A final race, and we got some side-by-side action here involving Grosseto getting that move done finally to move into P8 in front of Ben Ford. Now he's going to have to try and chase down Mark Swan in P7 for the lead in the AM category. But speaking of the lead, Pilbeam has actually taken the lead of the race from Olsen, but Schneibel and Olsen are looking to pick up the pieces. They may be getting involved in a dance as well, and you got to keep your eyes on the 4th place runner of Sazonov. The Russian driver is only actually less than a second away from our leader of Alex Pilbeam, so this could be a 4-car fight in the not too distant future. When I say not too distant future, I would not be shocked in the slightest if they go 4 wide, hang down the start finish straightaway, and look at Olsen getting the move done to take the lead of the race. Beautiful stuff from the Swede. A simple outbraking maneuver heading into the Dunlop chicane to retake the lead. Pilbeam, he's now got feeling the pressure from Schneibel. Sazonov as well. No, briefly blinking out of existence was Pilbeam. He briefly got abducted by a UFO. However, he's back on the racetrack and still running in second. I said a few moments ago, I won't be shocked if we see these drivers go 4 wide, hang down this start finish straight away. Let's see what happens now as they're about to start lap 4.
This long straightaway providing a good draft for everybody except Tobias Olsen. If you're Tobias Olsen, you hate this. You are going to hate this right now because you have this long straight over almost a mile long down into turn 1. And Schneibel, he thought about going down the inside. He decided against it. Play it safe for the meanwhile, as we still got plenty of time left. It's an 18-minute race here, and our pole sitter is now battling with Mark Swan. Thomas Hedlund now is going to lose the 6th spot, and he is battling, trying to get around. No, he does not. It's going to be Mark Swan into that 6th spot. Thomas Hedlund falls down to 7th. He has lost 6 positions since the start, and that's an unfortunate series of events, and he is going to be looking to potentially losing another spot to Fabio Grosseto.
That's actually Ford getting the move done on Grosseto. Beautiful stuff from Ben Ford to slide his way back into P8. Horrible stuff from Grosseto, though. Right as I was saying that, he was probably trying to eye up catching Swan to take the lead in that AM category. Things haven't gone to plan for sure. He's now running in 9th behind Ford and Hedlund. And as you said, Adam, this has been a terrible run of fortune for Hedlund. Was briefly leading this race at the very start. However, after a disastrous run coming through the hairpin, he has been relegated, and right now he's sitting in midfield hell, down 6 positions from where he started. And now it looks like Grosseto and Ford gonna be trading blows yet again. It took a long time for Grosseto to get that move done initially on Ford, but he's gonna be able to get it done heading into turn number 1 at the start of lap number 5. But Grosseto at this stage, he needs to blink out all the cars that are behind him. Oh, that was nearly a collision with Jay Walsh and Aberdeen hanging to turn number 1. Jay Walsh maybe getting caught out by the early braking of Aberdeen, or Aberdeen just, I'm not sure exactly what happened there. We may try and find a replay to see that close call between those two. I think it was a matter of inches heading into turn number 1, with Walsh having to pull off an evasive maneuver to avoid a collision with the pro driver who's running last of the pros currently. And Lutz is actually running down in 15th, so I'm not sure exactly what happened to the Belgian of Lutz. Maybe gonna try and find a replay to see what could have happened to him. It could have been just a simple spin, a small little mistake that catches him out badly here at this track. 16 corners in all, many opportunities to make a mistake. And one last point before I pass it back off to you, Adam, to possibly take a look at some replays, is that we unfortunately don't have a replay to see what happened with Lutz, so maybe it's just pace dropping him back a little bit. But anyways, despite the fact that we have longer left to go in this race than we had in the entirety of the heat races earlier on today, time is money in this series, and in a series that's paying $650 in prize pool money to some of the winners in this series in both the AM and Pro categories. At this stage, these drivers are going to push it because they don't want to waste a single moment. And right now, Schnebel trying to get that move done on Pilbeam side by side and get to turn number 2. Schnebel going to possibly take P2 very briefly, as Swan going side by side with Hedlund coming out of turn 1.
Swan, he gets the position away from Hedlund, and now here comes Schneibel. Schneibel, it makes contact though with, who was that, Pilbeam? Yes,
Pilbeam.
And Schneibel making contact. Pilbeam, he's trying to get back out on track as well, but he's got some damage, I think, to that right front tire, and Pilbeam falling down the order. Yeah, I think he realizes is wow, that car's steering is absolutely damaged. Yeah, you can see the loose wheel on his onboard camera here, and we'll wait for a replay on that. Now Ben Ford moving into the top 5, battling here with Hedlund. Hedlund trying to go side by side. Hedlund with the inside line gets the move done back through turn 12 as they now head into turn 13.
And Mark Swan has checked out. He's running in that 4th position. He has about a 1.5 second gap between himself and Hedlund. So right as we were saying not very long ago that Grosseto was maybe trying to eye up a win in that AM category, it hasn't exactly gone to plan. And it's not really Grosseto's fault, of course. That incident earlier on that sent him to that B main, that's going to hurt him a decent amount, but he's still feeling pressure, this time from the likes of Ford and Dexy as well, running in that P7 position. That was very close to hitting the pit wall, going down that start-finish straightaway, nearly close to contact between Dexy and Ford, with Grosseto doing some rally action going off the circuit on the exit of turn number 1. All these drivers are battling very hard side by side now, heading into turn number 3. Grosseto's going to get that move done, and Ford slipping by Hedlund. That was a beautiful move from the Brit to slip his way into P number 6. Incredible stuff from the driver of the CRF Motorsport Super Formula Lights car. That was a ballsy move heading into turn number 3. Right as I thought that he was going to back out of it and let Hedlund get in front of him, he said nope and just slipped right by him as Pilbeam has now come down pit lane. That tire is now completely off of that Super Formula Lights race car. Thankfully in this series he has a faster pair right now, as that front right tire is now just popped back into existence. But Pilbeam, who we thought was going to be a driver certainly involved in the podium battle, if not even the win battle with the likes of Olsen and the others that were running at the north end of the field, it has ended in tears for both of those drivers, as Pilbeam is actually 1 minute and 2 seconds off of the lead, and Schneibel has fallen back 8 spots. And here is the replay heading into 3, and oh, that looked like just a bit too much for Pilbeam. I think he bit off a bit more than he could chew. Side by side, hang through 3 is usually a death wish, as we saw earlier on with a driver going out of the park. Ugh. I don't really know what to make of that incident, Adam. What do you think?
I don't know. They're almost side by side into a high-speed corner, and you can think Pilbeam is almost pretty much right there. Has to brake a little bit harder just to make the corner happen. And it's a high-speed corner. You got one car on your outside. It's hard to hold that line through there. It's only really meant for one car to go through. It's not really meant for 2 cars to go through a high-speed corner like that side by side. It'll be interesting to see what happens with that incident, if there's any reports or any consequences to come from that. So, and we'll see what happens maybe next week if there's any penalties to be issued. So, last lap times here for our leader, Tobias Olsen, currently at 132.2. Sasnoff currently 132.4. Zemstra 132.4. And Mark Swan 132.7. Fabio Grosseto 132.3 for his best lap time, the Italian. Our leader's best lap time, 132.1. So has about a 310 run there. So up on the lead from everyone else. Lee Aberdeen, though, fastest lap time, 132.1. But he's just into the top 10 here. And he's trying to make up as much ground as possible. But again, an unfortunate series of events for Lee Aberdeen today. Again, pole position, loses all those spots due to an incident heat race 1, then barely makes the transfer, and barely in the top 6, and then has to race all the way through, gets involved in another earlier incident in this final, and now is 9th. Can this man just not catch a break?
Yeah, it's starting to look like it. If he didn't have bad luck, he would have no luck at all. Lee Aberdeen has been hit by multiple falling anvils so far in this race meeting. But I will say, if you're Lee Aberdeen leaving Fuji with what's probably going to be look like a finish outside of the top 5, you can't hold your head too low either, because he currently has a fastest lap of the race. If I'm very much mistaken, he has a fastest lap of the race still. I mean, Lee Aberdeen, he's shown some speed at this race meeting, and despite the fact that it's going to sting to get a result like this earlier on in the season, hey, it's still early on in this season. There are 6 more rounds left to go after tonight, so these drivers still have an opportunity to try and get some better results. And right now, this is a fight that we haven't really paid attention to so far in this broadcast and this race thus far. We're following Jeff Lutz looking from the rear view camera of his race car. This is sticking out from the back of actually that's the attenuator on the back of the race car of Jeff Lutz, running in that 12th position, and he actually clipped the curb on the outside of turn number 13 and got a little bit airborne. That brought Jay Walsh back into this fight, as they may be side by side or very close to it. Hang into turn number 1, make that 3 wide actually, heading into turn number 1. Jay Walsh is going to be in the middle, Jeff Lutz on the outside, and look at that, that was Tokbalatov who had that spin earlier on, making it 3 wide, very close to contact between himself and Jay Walsh, who gets that move done to slot his way into P12. Very nicely played from the Brit to make his way up into that 12th position, as Ford has had a mistake. You can see him now around. That's coming out the hairpin of turn number 6, and he was involved in that fight with Headland. He has been the center of attention all throughout this broadcast thus far. A lot of stuff has been going around Ford the Brit. However, with that small little mistake, hang through turn number 6, it has all gone badly wrong for him. Here is the replay. We're following him in that CRF Motorsports car heading into turn number 6, a tricky corner, and just got sideways, hang through the corner, and very close to contact between himself and Lee Aberdeen. That was a matter of millimeters separating Ben Ford and Lee Aberdeen from having a horrible collision, and you can see him sawing at that wheel, hang through turn number 5 before. I have a feeling that he may have just overcooked those rear tires, and hopefully we can find another angle this time, trying to see the incredibly close call between Ford's stopped race car and Lee Aberdeen, who's now running in 8th, make that 7th as he gets a move done on Dexy going down the start-finish straight away. They're going to be side by side unless Aberdeen can clear him, which he does, well before they even think about getting on the brakes into turn number 1. More side-by-side action here involving Schnebel, who makes his way, actually now running in 11th, looking to size up a move on Ford in the not-too-distant future, as Walsh side-by-side yet again with Lutz. Hang it to turn number 1, a lockup from Lutz, but it's going to be Lutz making that move up to slot his way into 13th. Tokbalatov, meanwhile, blew their doors off as he's now actually pulled away. Here's a replay of what may have happened to Lutz and Walsh. You can see Walsh incredibly wide, hang it to turn number 15, and on corner exits side by side through the final corner. I have a feeling we may actually know that just some side-by-side action possibly. I saw Lutz just go off the track coming out of that final corner. I was thinking we were going to see some aerial acrobatics involving Jeff Lutz. Right now he's running in 13th. For now, we could see some swap-a-roo happen between now and the checkered flag, which is coming in the not-too-distant future. I believe our leader, Olsen, is either on the white flag or taking the white flag this time by... And there's been a lot happening throughout this race. There really hasn't been a dull moment all throughout this race meeting, has there?
No, there has not been. Now we're seeing what we would call pairs of...
We had a small little technical issue. Hopefully my colleague Adam has not been abducted by a UFO. That would not be ideal. That sounded very, very disturbing as he got back on the microphone. Fingers crossed my colleague can join me. Between now and the end of the broadcast, as Mark Swan tries to get a move done. That was on Grosseto. These two battling for the win in the AM category, being and banging and roughing each other up. Very close to contact. I think they are making contact in the run up to turn number 3, side by side. And Swan is going to hold on to that P1 spot in that pro category. P4 overall. But Adam, I think we may have you back after that encounter of a third kind that you had with your microphone. You just missed a nice fight between Grosseto and Swan, which is still quite hot, coming F6 for the final time.
Yeah, it's better than the F1 broadcast at Monaco Grand Prix, so... here they go. Grosseto and Mark Swan side by side as they go into turn 10. Still side by side through 11 and into 12, but the 20 of, or the 206, I should say, of Fabio Grosseto doing his job to defend off and hold on to that 5th place spot. Back out to the race lead, Tobias Olsen leading by 5.5 seconds here with Sasno off. Now, well, excuse me, we're on the checkered flag. Checkered flag for Tobias Olsen. He'll win the 2nd week here of the ARA Super Formula Lights Series. Zemstra battling hard, but takes home 2nd with Sasno off in 3rd. Mark Swan in 4th, barely gets there with Grosseto hot on his heels with Headloon in 6th, Lee Aberdeen in 7th, Dexy in the 8th spot, Schneibel in 9th, Dalil Akbalut currently in the top 10, and the final spot in the top 10, Ben Ford 11th, and Jay Walsh comes home to 13th, Lutz in 14th, and Pilbean in the 15th spot. And let's take a look at the replay with Lutz and Jay Walsh. Jeff Lutz, Jay Walsh. Lutz is in the yellow and red car, going around the outside of Jeff Lutz. Lutz having to find hard here. They come with the 16 again, side by side battle for this spot here. And Walsh, he's going to get the good run out of turn 16, takes that wider line. And will the draft help out Lutz? They're going to be so close. Lutz has to get out of line. Doesn't quite use the slipstream to all of its advantage, but to the line it's going to be Jay Walsh in that 13th spot. So all the way through the field there, Ron, everybody having quite the battles here. And if you are a United States race fan and you watch NASCAR and you remember what that used to be like back in the early 2010s of tandem drafting pretty much at the end there. So, but lots of battling there, Ron. And of course, we'll have our driver interviews here shortly when they get in our Discord chats here. We'll pull them in. And Ron, let's take a look at those final results.
And we'll hopefully get those up. Oh, there we go. At first I thought they had been glitched out yet again. Here they are, the A final results from a dramatic race meeting here at Fuji. It's Tobias Olsen, the Swede, taking top honors, 5.5 seconds in front of the Dutch driver of Kevin Zwemstra in P2. Sazonov was not very far behind, rounding at your podium in 3rd. That's going to be Mark Swan taking the win in that AM category. It wasn't easy for him though. Grosseto was on a charge towards the end of this race, and those two nearly came to blows heading into the Coca-Cola corner of turn number 3. Thankfully, they kept it going in a straight line and produced a fantastic finish. Those two finishing P1 and P2 in the AM category and P4 and P5 overall in this race. That's going to be Hedlund dropping back like a rock all throughout the race, it must be said. Briefly was in the lead, however, he ends up in P6. Lee Aberdeen, it must be said, with a comeback of a century. It wasn't a spin and win, it was a a spin and P7, but the fact he matched a spin out so early on into this race and still got away with a top 10 result is quite impressive. Istvan Dexy, who we saw involved in that B main earlier on, he ends up in 8th, very nicely played. Leonard Schneibel probably hoping that things went a bit differently, got involved in that incident with Alex Pilbeam midway through that A final race, and sadly for him, it ends in tears as he finishes all the way down in P9. Tough stuff from the driver that entered this race as the reigning race winner and the leader of the championship. That's going to be the Dutch driver of Dalil Alkbut, rounding out your top 10 with Ben Ford right behind him, P11. Tokbalatov with a good recovery drive, it must be said, after a spin earlier on. He ends up in P12. Jay Walsh and Jeff Lutz involved in that fantastic finish a little bit farther in the back. That was interesting with Lutz, though. It looked like he was fishing for the slipstream, pulling in and out of the back of Jay Walsh's car to try and get that slipstream. Good stuff there. And then rounding out your field very far away from our winner, Tobias Olsen, is another pro driver who could have been involved in the fight for the win, definitely was going to be a factor in that podium fight, is Alex Pilbeam. Tough stuff from the Brit, who we all thought heading into the final stages of this race meeting was going to be a driver to keep our eyes on. Well, he was, just in the wrong ways.
Well, it looks like we got some drivers starting to file into our waiting area for interviews, so we'll pull them in here in just a moment, and we see some of the highlights here from this one. Again, there's the move by the 191 of Tobias Olsen to take the race lead, and he drove into the distance with this one, and not really having to worry too much about what was happening behind him. But what was happening behind him, well, we only have one word for it. It was chaos. It was if you were in that race, if I was in that race, I would not be having a fun time. That did not look all that fun to navigate all the carnage and chaos, especially on a high-speed circuit like this. And Ron, if you want to go ahead and bring in our race winner of Tobias Olsen.
Alrighty, sounds good, Adam. I'll bring in our winner, Tobias, to have a quick little chat before we wrap things up on this broadcast. Tobias, thank you for joining us in the commentary booth. It was a hard-fought afternoon from your perspective. Congratulations on the victory. How was it out there?
Thank you. It was quite fun, I would say. First heat was a bit challenging in the start, but yeah. Other than that, final race was the first few laps was a bit tricky. Then I just got out of the slipstream, and then it was just to sail away and take the win. So it was good.
Sail away indeed towards the end of this race once you shook off the challenges from the cars a little bit farther in the back. Was it just easy from you to just keep it on the racetrack, or were you still facing some challenges even though there weren't cars pressuring you from the back?
Yeah, I'm kind of always my own enemy when I'm driving. As soon as I have, green in the delta bar, I try to go faster, so I tend to spin sometimes in the lead, but this time I made it.
Oh, trust me, Tobias, I've done that on multiple occasions myself. You usually hear about the red mist in the world of racing, the green mist as well. When you see a little bit of time gain all lap, you really want to push it to try and get an added few tenths. But next time out in 1 week's time, we're going to be heading to Spa, which is a much different track compared to the one we faced here today. How do you think that race is going to be in 1 week's time?
I think you just need to get the setup right with the wings and stuff, and then... yeah, I think it's a track that suits me. Fast corners, so should be fun.
Keeping my fingers crossed, that's going to be fun. A slipstream fest it will be for sure, and fingers crossed for your sakes that we see you up towards the north end of the field yet again. Tobias Olsen, congratulations on that victory. Is there anyone you want to give a thanks to or shout out?
I guess my teammates. Yeah, that's about it. Thanks.
Alrighty, fair enough, Tobias. Thank you for joining us in the commentary booth, and congratulations on the victory yet again.
Thanks.
As I briefly dragged myself out of the commentary booth there. Sorry, Adam.
It's all good. And of course, nobody else looks like it will be joining us. So, but our winner tonight, Tobias Olsen. You gotta wonder how this is going to shape in the points. Yeah, as you mentioned earlier, Ron, it's only an 8-week season, so not a whole lot of time to mess around and collect. If you have 1 or 2 bad races, you got to have a good race here pretty much every week to stay in the hunt for the championship. Of course, our finish there at the end, chaos, and what could you ask for? So, and that, of course, again, Fuji Speedway here. Beautiful track here, who gave us some great, wonderful racing in the ARA Super Formula Lights. Next week, where do we head to next week, Ron?
It is going to be Spa for the next round of the season, and bit of a slipstream fest, it must be said. I've seen some very chaotic races at Spa over the years. I'll tell you what, I am keeping my fingers crossed that you can join us in the commentary booth next week, Adam, because the last time I did an Apex Racing Academy broadcast at Spa, I did it all by my lonesome, and our producer Josh can attest that that was the case. I'll tell you what, I think towards the end of that, he wanted to try and axe me. That was for sure, just hearing me have a conversation with myself for an hour and a half. But that was one of the amazing tracks that we're visiting throughout the rest of the season. Spawn 1 week's time, then after that kicking off the month of August, the final month of this season, where we have 5 races to deal with in one single month. Sebring right after Spa, followed by the Hungaroring, Mugello, Motegi, returning to Japan in over about a month's time. So it's going to be a while until we visit a Japanese circuit once again, and then to round off this season on August the 29th, it's going to be at Zandvoort on the Grand Prix layout. So we have some amazing tracks to look forward to. Spa's going to be no different in 1 week's time, and fingers crossed that all the viewers here on Apex Racing TV will join us, because that is going to be a hoot.
It should be a good time next week, Spa Francorchamps, and that should be a very good race indeed. I'm excited to be here for that one. Of course, you're gonna have all sorts of chaos in any type of car at Spa. So, well, I think that is going to wrap it up for us here this afternoon, this evening, and this night. My name is Adam, along with Ron and Josh and everyone here who is watching and who is working here at Apex Racing TV. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure to hit that subscribe and notification bell to know when we go live here on AR TV. My name is Adam Thompson, along with Ron. Good night here from Fuji.
Are you struggling for consistency in your sim racing? Does your iRating look like a roller coaster? If so, we have good news for you. The way to get more consistent is to first understand what you're doing differently than the professionals. And VRS is the answer. With our competitive subscription, you will have the telemetry, setups, tutorials, and everything else you need to fully analyze your driving. Our data packs and the ability to compare your driving with the best in the world will show you exactly where to adjust your inputs, change your driving line, and shave seconds off of your lap times. And our powerful and precise Direct Force Pro wheelbase and precision pedals are being used by some of the world's best drivers. All these champions agree that VRS hardware is not just the best on the market, it's also priced well below the competition. So if you're looking to upgrade to direct drive and the best pedals in sim racing, VRS is your answer. If you want to get better, get faster, and make it happen sooner rather than later, you owe it to yourself to find out why so many people are switching to VRS. You'll be so glad that you did. Visit www.virtualracingschool.com and learn why the best use VRS.